I speak of culture sickness. So
Yeah.
the way that I frame it is that we are living in a sick culture, which I emphasize that that's not a judgment that, oh, this culture's sick. It's not in that way. It's that our culture has a sickness.
Yes.
And so we, by virtue of existing and participating and ultimately being the makeup of this culture, we contract this sickness by living in it. And when I say sickness, I don't strictly mean physical ailments, although that's a form that it takes.
Can certainly manifest as that.
Yeah, or mental ailments, or many other ailments. The crisis of meaning, or any of these things can be attributed to this cultural sickness. And so, what do we do about that? To me, ultimately it comes down to awareness, attention, going back to this idea of the shadow. The things that we sweep under the rug of the shadow, they emerge in other ways. So what happens with the culture's shadow? We sweep things under the rug, and sometimes, it's just dust or food particles or whatnot, and maybe we're not noticing it as we're walking over the rug, but sometimes we're sweeping a boulder under the rug and we're going to trip on it.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, it's going to injure us in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the idea that facing everything with open eyes is the way. That, this idea that the way out is through, or that, to see one's wholeness is to actually look at all of the aspects of us, including the shadow aspects, including the sickness. And if we're doing this on a personal scale, we're doing this on a cultural scale, then there's nowhere for these aspects to hide. And if there's nowhere for them to hide, then we can start the work of integrating them. And to integrate oneself, then there's no room for sickness if you have all of the parts of yourself in harmonious alignment. And again, I speak of sickness not merely to say physical illness.
You mean how the world is impacting you?
Yeah, and the ways that the world is failing us, the ways that the culture is failing us, the ways that it's teaching us these unhelpful or harmful lessons, the way that it's not addressing our true needs, the way that it's lending us to become disconnected, the way that it's not giving us encouragement to step into our authentic selves. All of these litany of ways that we're being failed by this culture that, human beings have created. And
do you think there's a way out?
To me, the way out is each person doing his or her own psychological work.
Yeah.
And that's the only way out, because in my opinion, no institution is going to save us. The state will not save us. No ideology is going to save us. These things can put Band-Aids over things if they're applied properly. But ultimately, what culture is the confluence of the actions of every individual within it. So if we're moving through the world and we're sick, we're perpetuating the sickness. And if we're getting ourselves into alignment, then we're affecting the field.
Yeah.
And we're creating stability in the field. We're creating harmony in the field. And simply by moving through the world, that impacts the people that we come into contact with. Because we're not throwing our shadow stuff on other people.